Hey lovelies, I am Terri Wheat and I'm a Seint artist because I love it. And so if you need color matched, if you have any questions, if you would like to join me in being a Seint artist and have me mentor you, then reach out. I wanted to talk today about the difference between contour and bronzer because if you haven't used it before, a lot of women kind of get the two confused and aren't really sure how they're different and how to use those differently and what they'll actually do for you. So basically contour. It is a little bit of a drier formulation. It still has our lanolin and beeswax and paraffin, but it's a drier formulation. And so it's not going to be as buttery, as spreadable, because you don't want your shadows to shift. So your contour colors are typically cooler, ashier colors because we want them to look like a shadow. The purpose of the contour is to add depth and dimension to your face. So if you were going to paint a portrait or paint anything round like an apple, you would put shadows around the edges so that it rounds out the item, so that it doesn't look flat, so that it looks 3D. And that's the same thing we want to do with your face. Traditionally, we have just put all one color of foundation all over our face and it kind of flattens it out, and it's just not as flattering. It can make your face look wider, it can make your forehead look bigger, your chin look larger, all the things that you don't want. So it's just a more flattering look to have the 3D look and to kind of accentuate those curves and make your features pop. And so this contour is what is going to add the shadows and dimension to round out your face, to make your features pop, to give you a lift and make everything just pulled up and lifted like you want it to look. And it's kind of like a little bit of a facelift in a makeup product. It gives you some optical illusions that are really, really flattering. So again, drier formulation, cooler, ashier tones. When you put like your contour for your cheek, you don't want that shadow to fall, to droop, to shift at all. You want it to stay put, and that's what the contour is going to do. And everyone's color is going to be individual for them. And so that's one of the reasons we color match you. We have lots of different contour colors. I choose the one that would be most flattering for your skin tones and undertones and your hair and eyes and the whole picture. And so this one is mine. Yours may look different, but they all do the same job. Now, bronzer. Bronzer is different. It is also going to have the beeswax, the lanolin, and paraffin, but this is like our skin colors to where it kind of melts in like butter. This one is just a stain of color, so it's not opaque where you can't see through it. It's just kind of a stain. And bronzer's purpose is to add warmth and life to your face. You know how most of us feel like we look a lot better with a suntan? It's because it gives this youthfulness. It adds life into our face because when we're younger, we have more pretty and flattering colors to like our lips, and we have less of the unflattering colors like the under eye, and we have just natural flushes. And so this kind of brings back a little bit of that life into our face. As we get older, we can get some of the unflattering colors that pop out, but the general tone of our skin can be kind of sallow, can look kind of pasty, kind of unhealthy, and this just gives a dose of youthfulness to it. Also, the reason that we often like our skin better with a tan is because it can kind of diminish or downplay some of those unflattering colors and dark spots and that kind of thing. And so this is going to kind of do that as well. It's going to kind of hide on the edges, maybe some of the melasma that you have, kind of neutralize that a bit. But it's just going to bring a lot of life and a natural flush to your face. Because it's a stain of color, it's going to look very natural. The color for this one is perfect. We have 4 different bronzer colors. This one is my favorite. It's called Bella. It's the one that I prescribe most often with my color matches. For very fair gals or for dark-skinned gals, I may prescribe a different bronzer for them, but in general for the medium tones, Bella is my favorite. So it gives the perfect sun-kissed glow, exactly what you want when you have the perfect tan. This color is it, and you can go really light with it, or you can keep going and keep adding and give yourself that bronzy glow. And speaking of glow, oh my goodness, this gives such a glow, especially when you put it on with the blush and bronzer brush. When I put this on, especially on my cheeks, I kind of circle and polish and buff my skin with it, and it polishes this into such a gorgeous shine that it gives this really nice supple glow to your skin that just makes it look younger and so pretty. You can put your contour on with your fingers. In fact, you can use any of our products with your fingers. I prefer brushes because I feel like they give the most airbrushed look. They give the prettiest finish. And so that's what I'm going to do. And it's a matter of preference which ones you start with. I like to do the contour first. That way, when I go over it with my bronzer, if I were to start with my bronzer and then go over it with the contour, I feel like I would cover up my bronzer a little bit, that pretty color with this ashier color. And I just love Bella bronzer so much that I don't want to cover it at all. So I start with my contour, and like I talked about, when you're doing that portrait, when you're painting the portrait or painting an apple or a ball, you're going to go around the edges of it and add shadows to make it look like it is curving back and give it that 3D pop. We're doing the same thing around your face. And so I start around my hairline, and I just go right around my hairline. Now, if you have a large forehead, you can come down a little more. You can go all the way around. If you have a really tiny forehead, you can do less. You can keep it really thin. So it is going to thin out your areas and kind of sculpt and chisel. And so if you don't need or want as chiseled of a forehead, you can do less. You can kind of blend it back into your hairline if you have dark enough hair. And then I just go back and I just kind of blend it. You don't want to see the dark line. You just kind of want it to disappear like a natural shadow. And then still going around the circle, the edges of my face. And so I'm gonna put it right along my jawline, where as we get older, it helps to kind of chisel and give yourself a lift there, because you don't want it to look like you have jowls. And this can kind of chisel and sculpt your jawline. Now I got it a little bit too far down, so I'll just blend that back up. The great thing about creams is you really can't mess them up because they are just going to melt and blend like butter. Okay, so we have the outer perimeter of my face done. And so now we're going to go into the cheeks. And with my cheeks, I like to put it right on top of my cheekbone, right at the bottom of that, not under it, right on top of the bottom of that bone. And it makes a huge difference. Once you see it, once you get used to it, there's no going back. You will do it every time because you're going to love it. And I leave it a little dark at first, put some under my bottom lip to kind of make it look like that is larger than it is. And then I turn around the brush. This is a 3D foundation brush. A lot of people use this for their foundation. I have others that are my favorite for that, but this is the one that I do like to use for my contour. And I just kind of go over it and dab it, just kind of softly. This one is a drier formulation. We're not spreading it around. We're just dabbing and blending. We're going to keep that shadow exactly where we want it. And then this is an extra step you don't have to do. And it is not something I ever thought I needed or thought I would have messed with, but I have fallen in love with it. And now that I have seen it, I can't unsee it. And I notice it in pictures, in person. And if I don't contour my nose, it just doesn't seem as cute. And so I always go back and do it. Now you're going to want to be careful, and you're going to want to pull back and kind of look around to make sure you're seeing it in varying angles of light, because you don't want it to be too dark. And it's easy to do because your nose is the feature that's actually popping out on your face. And so if you're only looking at it head on, it can kind of play tricks with the light and fool you. And so you do want to kind of move around to make sure you haven't left it too dark. And then I just kind of dab it, go down along the bones of my nose. I'm using the multitasker. A lot of people use their fingers. I like the really thin line because I don't have a large nose anyway, and so that's my favorite. And then I just take the extra, put it under my lips. So that's the contour. So around the perimeter of our face. If you have a really wide face here, you can even come along here. I just kind of do it here and here under the cheekbones to give a lift. I go ahead and do my nose because I like the look. And then I put a little bit under my lip, my bottom lip, and that's all I do as far as contour. Now the bronzer, the warmer one that adds life and glow to your face, that one we're going to put also around the perimeter. Number one, because if you were to go out in the sun without sunscreen, the first place you are going to get some sun on your face are the points that stick out the most. So the top of your forehead, your nose, and then your cheeks. And so we'll hit all of those areas. But then I go ahead and do a little bit around the perimeter just to kind of add to that sculpting and just so everything isn't top heavy and all on the top. We've hit the perimeter just like we did with the contour. I always put a little bronzer around the tip of my nose before I contour it usually. And then I put it on the apples of my cheeks. If you were to get a suntan or a sunburn, it would definitely hit the apples of your cheeks. And like I said, I circle and polish and buff it just as if I were circling and polishing and buffing a floor that I really wanted to up the shine. And this brush does an amazing job with this bronzer in particular of doing that. And so it just makes your skin look so much younger and so supple. I love it. It's addictive. So that's the difference between contour and bronzer. Again, the contour is a drier formulation, so your shadows don't shift. It chisels and sculpts your face. It adds depth and dimension with what looks like shadows and kind of visual optical illusions. And then the bronzer is all about adding warmth. You can absolutely layer these. In fact, you will have to layer them. You can start with the contour, you can start with the bronzer. It's up to you. But you will layer them. I like to have the last thing going on be the warmth of the bronzer on top. And so it's fine to layer. These are creams. And so you can do them like paint by number to where each thing just goes in its place, but it's going to melt like butter and you can't mess it up. And it's all going to work together and be blendable. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me a bunch. I try to put out videos at least every week and a lot of times much more often than that. And thanks so much for watching and I'll see you soon.